My ex used me to babysit her kids while she went Black Friday, shopping with a new guy, so I blocked her and left town. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I used to believe that love, real love, meant staying even when it hurt. That's how Tasha got me. We were together for 7 years, lived together for 5, raised her 2 kids. Well, I raised them while she figured out who she wanted to be. And even after we broke up, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're still family. Nothing changes that." I clung to those words like a lifeline. I wanted to believe we were just going through a rough patch, that maybe with some time and space, she'd realize what we had was worth saving. So when she asked if I could help out with the kids here and there, weekends, school pickups, bedtime routines, I said yes before she even finished the sentence, because they weren't just her kids. They were our life. I was there when her daughter lost her first tooth, when her son cried because he missed his dad who never showed up. I wiped their tears, read them stories, packed their lunches. Even after Tasha and I split, I stayed in their lives like nothing changed. Looking back, maybe that was my first mistake, thinking loyalty meant letting myself be used. At first, it was small favors. A couple hours while she ran errands, a sleepover so she could decompress. Then it became routine. Every weekend, every early morning text, "Can you come over?" And I always did, because she said I was still family. I didn't realize she was already seeing someone else. That she wasn't running errands. She was out dating, smiling, moving on while I was in her living room, braiding her daughter's hair and pretending like my heart wasn't breaking all over again. But the worst part? I still kept showing up. Her kids called me dad for years, even though I never asked them to. Tasha used to laugh about it and say, "Well, you're more of a dad than their real one ever was." And I wore that like a badge of honor. I knew every cartoon they liked, what snacks to pack to avoid tantrums, and how to tell bedtime stories in 3 different voices. They were my world, even after their mom broke mine. So when she asked if I could still be part of their lives post-breakup, I said yes without blinking. I thought I was doing the right thing for the kids. I didn't want them to feel like they lost me too. I told myself this was healthy. This was co-parenting, even though I had no legal rights, no real claim to them. But emotionally, they were mine. The problem was, I never stopped loving them, or her. Every time I saw Tasha, a small part of me hoped she'd say, "I made a mistake. Come home." And every time she didn't, I swallowed it down, nodded, and asked what time she needed me to pick up the kids, but the signs were there. Subtle things. She stopped texting me back unless it was about the kids. She used to ask how I was doing. Now it was all scheduling. "Can you take them Saturday night? They've got a school project due Monday." Her voice softened only when she needed a favor. And stupidly, I kept giving. I told myself it was for the kids, but deep down I was just scared to lose what little connection I had left to her, to us. Even if it meant being a ghost in their lives, even if it meant slowly disappearing, while pretending I was still needed. It started slowly, like most manipulations do. At first, it was just an hour or 2. "I need to run to Target," she'd say, handing me the diaper bag and her keys. No big deal. Then it became 3 hours, then 5, then full days where I didn't even know where she was. But every time she returned, she'd breeze in with that same breezy smile and a distracted, "Thank you. You're the best." Like I was just the neighbor doing a casual favor, not the man who helped raise her children. I didn't want to be suspicious. That's the thing. When you love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt far longer than they deserve. I convinced myself she was working more, that maybe she was just overwhelmed. Maybe her mental health was slipping. I even asked her once carefully, "Is everything okay? You've been gone a lot lately." She just looked at me and said, "You worry too much. You've always been like this." I laughed it off, but something in her tone stuck with me. That flicker of irritation, like my concern was an inconvenience. Like I was no longer entitled to ask where she'd been. Then one night, her 8-year-old son, bright-eyed and honest to a fault, was telling me about his day at school while we played with Legos. He casually said, "Mommy said her friend with the big arms might come over when you leave." I froze. I don't even know if he realized what he'd said. But my blood went cold. I waited until the kids fell asleep and sat in her living room alone, staring at the wall, staring at the couch we used to fall asleep on together. It was like I could still feel her head on my shoulder, but now it was someone else she leaned on, and I was just the babysitter now. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving when she texted, "Hey, I need a huge favor. Can you take the kids Friday morning? I want to hit some Black Friday deals early." I stared at the message longer than I should have. Something in me was already tired, but I still replied, "Of course. What time?" She dropped them off at 6 a.m. sharp, barely making eye contact. I was still rubbing the sleep out of my eyes when she shoved 2 juice boxes into my hand, gave the kids a kiss on the forehead, and sped off without so much as a thanks. No coffee, no warning, no plan, just a scribbled note that said, "Snacks in the bag. Be back soon." She was wearing heels, full makeup, hair done. I told myself she just wanted to look nice while shopping, but it didn't sit right. By 9 a.m., I'd already played hide and seek, made pancakes, cleaned up spilled syrup, and changed her youngest out of a shirt he'd colored all over with markers. Still no word from her. Noon came, nothing. I texted, "All okay?" No response. I tried to shake it off. Maybe she was in a crowded store, bad signal. Maybe she was driving. Maybe. By 2 p.m., my anxiety was chewing through my chest. The kids were cranky and starting to ask, "When's mommy coming back?" I didn't have an answer. I just kept smiling and distracting them with Disney movies and snacks I had to run out and buy myself. And all the while, I kept refreshing my phone, like maybe the truth would magically show up on my lock screen. But it didn't, not until I opened Instagram and saw everything I wasn't supposed to see. It hit me like a sucker punch. I wasn't even trying to snoop, I just opened Instagram out of habit while the kids were building pillow forts in the living room. And there it was. A photo of Tasha, dressed to kill in a tight red dress I'd never seen before, standing arm in arm with a guy I didn't recognize. He had one hand around her waist, the other holding shopping bags from designer stores. The caption read, "Black Friday wins with my king." My stomach flipped. I clicked the post again, thinking maybe it was old. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. But the timestamp said it was posted just an hour ago. The comments were still rolling in. "You guys look amazing. Y'all are perfect together. Look at you glowing, girl." I just sat there, frozen, numb. My mouth went dry. She had lied, blatantly, carelessly. She wasn't running errands. She wasn't shopping alone. She was out flaunting a new relationship like our history meant nothing, and I was back here wiping her son's nose while she played house with someone new. I stared at that photo for what felt like forever. Not because I cared she was seeing someone else, I mean, yeah, that hurt, but because she'd looked me in the face and said, "You're still family." Because she used me, used my loyalty. Used the love I still had for those kids. Used the part of me that hadn't yet let go. I glanced over at the couch. Her daughter had fallen asleep, a crayon still in her hand. Her son was tugging on my shirt, asking if he could have a snack. And I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded, because even after everything I'd just seen, I still couldn't bring myself to walk away. Not yet. I waited until the kids were tucked in, and I was finally alone in the hallway bathroom. My hands were shaking as I typed out the message. "You said you were going shopping for the kids. Who's the guy in your post?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over send. Then I hit it. Sent, and waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15, nothing. Finally, she replied. No greeting, no explanation. Just, "Why are you stalking my page? This is exactly why we didn't work." I blinked at the screen, trying to wrap my head around how I had become the problem in 2 sentences. I responded, "I'm watching your kids. You said you needed help. I just saw the post." That's all, and she fired back like a loaded gun. "You said you loved the kids. So what's the issue?" "I'm allowed to move on. You're not their dad." That line hit harder than anything. You're not their dad. It didn't matter that I was the one who stayed. That I was the one up with them when they had nightmares. The one who learned how to braid her daughter's hair. Who memorized which dinosaur her son liked best. None of that counted. None of it protected me from being dismissed like a babysitter who'd overstayed his welcome. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive over there and throw my phone at her feet and say, "How dare you?" But I didn't. I just sat on the bathroom floor, staring at my own reflection in the mirror, red-eyed, tired, and holding on to a family that had already replaced me. And the worst part? She didn't even say thank you. I thought I had more control over my emotions. I really did. But the next morning, while I was making oatmeal and pouring orange juice, it hit me. All of it. The lies, the manipulation, The fact that I'd let myself get dragged along like some forgotten sock clinging to the dryer door. I blinked fast, trying to swallow it down, but tears started falling before I even noticed. That's when her daughter walked into the kitchen and said softly, "Why are your eyes red?" I turned away quickly and tried to laugh it off. "Just tired, sweetheart." "I'm okay," but her son wasn't buying it either. He came up, hugged my leg, and asked, "Did we do something bad?" God, that nearly crushed me. I knelt down and wrapped my arms around both of them. "No, never. You two are perfect. This isn't about you, okay?" But how do you explain heartbreak to kids? How do you tell them that the person you trusted most turned you into a placeholder? We sat on the floor and colored together for a while after that. I smiled when they smiled. I laughed at their jokes. But the whole time, it felt like I was watching myself from the outside, like I was just playing a role in someone else's story. And yet, some part of me still didn't want to leave. Still hoped maybe Tasha would walk through that door, apologize, say it was all a misunderstanding. I hated myself for hoping that. The day dragged. No texts, no updates, just silence and a growing pit in my stomach, because if even the kids could see something was wrong, then maybe I wasn't the only one being lied to. That night, after the kids were asleep and I was finally alone in the quiet, I did something I hadn't done before. I clicked on the guy's profile from the photo. His account was public. Bad move on his part. And as I scrolled, the blood in my face drained. There were pictures of him and Tasha going back months. Beach selfies. Candlelit dinners. Movie nights. Her in his hoodie. Him holding flowers at her doorstep. And underneath almost every post were these glowing comments. Power couple. So happy you found your person. When do I get to meet the lucky kiddos? That last one stopped me cold. There it was. One of his friends had commented, "Can't wait to see you as a stepdad." And he replied, "Haven't met the kids yet. She's super cautious," which I respect. My mouth literally dropped open. He didn't even know she had me watching them. Didn't know I existed. Didn't know the caution she was preaching was actually her sneaking off while I kept her secret. That's when it all clicked. She wasn't just lying to me, she was lying to him too. Selling two versions of herself at the same time, and we were both too blind or too in love to question it. I stared at my phone for what felt like hours. Part of me wanted to message him, expose everything. Show him the texts, the schedules, the photos of me reading to her kids just days ago. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the dark with my fists clenched and heart pounding, realizing that I wasn't just a backup. I was the safety net she never planned to thank and always planned to use. I hadn't told anyone. Not a soul. Not about how I was still babysitting for my ex. Not about how I still hoped she'd change her mind. Not about how I watched her move on while I stayed behind, pretending it didn't kill me. But that night, after the kids had gone to sleep and I was sitting alone on her worn-down couch, I picked up the phone and called my sister. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked, light and cheerful. I tried to say yes. I tried to lie. But instead, I just said, "I think I'm being used." She didn't interrupt. She let me talk. I told her everything. How I'd been watching the kids every weekend, how Tasha told me I was still family, how she was now posting some new guy like I was never there. I told her about the Instagram photo, about the silence, about the way her daughter asked me why I was crying. There was this pause, just silence on the line. And then she said softly but firmly, "She's manipulating you. You know that, right?" I think hearing someone else say it cracked something open in me. She wasn't being dramatic. She wasn't overreacting. She was naming it. "You're being emotionally abused," my sister continued. "She's using the kids to keep you in her orbit. And you're not obligated to sacrifice yourself just because you love them." It hit me like a slap. I'd been thinking it, deep down, but hearing it out loud, it felt like permission. Permission to finally question the whole twisted dynamic. "You need to get out," she said, "before she breaks you completely." I didn't say anything, but I knew she was right. And the worst part? I had no idea how to walk away. Tasha came back around midnight. No warning, no apology. Just a quick knock on the door followed by, "Hey, thanks again. I owe you one." She didn't even step inside. The kids were already asleep on the couch, still wearing the pajamas I'd put them in. She scooped them up like groceries and didn't even look at me. I stood in the doorway watching her walk them to her car. I waited for a moment of recognition. A pause, a thank you, even a glance, nothing. She didn't ask how they'd been. She didn't ask how I was. She just drove off into the night like I was some paid sitter she'd Venmo later, except she didn't. I didn't want to go home. My apartment felt hollow, full of old photos, spare toothbrushes, toys she never picked up. So I just drove. No destination. Just me, the road, and the ringing silence of everything I hadn't said. Eventually, I pulled into a Walmart parking lot, turned off the engine, and stared out the windshield until the sky turned a dark, sickly blue. I slept in the car that night, wrapped in an old hoodie, seat reclined, freezing. I must have looked pathetic, just another guy with too much baggage and nowhere left to unload it. I wasn't even sure why I didn't go home. Maybe part of me was punishing myself. Maybe I thought if I sank low enough, it would finally break the spell she had on me. I stared at the ceiling of my car, whispering to myself, "What the hell are you doing?" That night, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't staying for the kids anymore. I was staying because I didn't know who I was without her. The next morning, I sat in my car outside my apartment, hands still trembling on the steering wheel. I hadn't slept more than an hour. My mouth was dry. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. But the one thing I knew for sure, I couldn't keep doing this. Something had to break. And if it wasn't going to be her manipulative games, then it had to be me. So I went upstairs, showered off the night air, and sat at my kitchen table with a pen and 2 sheets of paper. I wrote a letter to each of them, her daughter first, then her son. Nothing dramatic, just the truth written as gently as I could. You are so smart and kind and brave. You made me proud every single day. I hope one day you understand why I had to go. I told them I loved them, that they didn't do anything wrong. That grown-up problems sometimes make things confusing, and that even when I'm not around, I'll always be rooting for them. I folded each letter carefully and placed them in 2 envelopes, labeled only with their first names. Then I gathered all the little things I'd been holding on to, her daughter's drawing of me, Mommy and a rainbow, her son's old toy car he always left at my place, the board game we used to play every Friday night. I packed it all into a box. I didn't trust Tasha to pass the letters on, so I dropped the box off with her neighbor, an older woman I knew cared about the kids, and just said, "Please give this to them when you think the time is right." Then I walked away. Heartbreaking as it was, because I finally understood, love isn't about how much you're willing to give. It's about knowing when to stop giving to someone who only takes. When I got home, the silence hit different. For the first time, it wasn't suffocating, it was cleansing. My phone was lighting up with notifications, mostly from group chats or old friends I hadn't answered in weeks. But one name stood out at the top of my messages. Tasha, 3 unread texts. Hey, you around? I might need you this weekend. And the last one, the kids miss you. Don't be selfish, that last line did it. Something inside me snapped, but not in anger, more like release. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want to keep pretending this arrangement was anything but emotional slavery disguised as helping. So I opened her contact. Hovered over the name that used to make my heart race, and hit block. It felt holy. Like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd forgotten I still owned. Then I went further. I blocked her on Instagram, Facebook, even Venmo, because somehow she always found a way to slip a message through when she wanted something. I even drafted a short email, cold, clean, final, please don't contact me again. I wish you the best, but I'm moving on. Then I turned off my phone. For 2 full days, I lived without the constant vibration of guilt in my pocket. I cooked for myself, cleaned my apartment, took a walk without glancing at my screen every 5 minutes. It wasn't peace right away. It was quiet. And quiet, I realized, is the seed of peace. For the first time in years, she didn't have access to me, and for the first time in years, I didn't want her to. I packed my bags in silence. No dramatic playlist, no deep sighs, no looking back. Just jeans, a few shirts, my toothbrush, and the bare essentials. I wasn't running away. I was removing myself. There's a difference. Running feels desperate. What I did felt like survival. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't even text my sister. I just left a note on my kitchen table that said, "I'm okay. I just need space." Then I got in my car, turned off my phone again, and drove north. No destination, no GPS. Just wherever the road decided to take me, I ended up in this tiny mountain town I'd never heard of before. Pine trees taller than anything I'd ever seen. The air was cold and clean. I found a cheap little cabin on a rental app. $45 a night, no Wi-Fi, no TV, just a wood-burning stove and a creaky twin bed. I stayed for a week. I made simple meals, eggs, soup, toast. I journaled. I took long walks with no purpose. I stared at the sky until it turned purple. I screamed into the trees once just to hear what my pain sounded like out loud. It echoed back like a stranger's voice. The hardest part was the silence in my head. No Tasha, no kids. No, when do you need me? Or can you just help out this weekend? Just me, my thoughts, my wounds. But something strange happened on the third day. I woke up and didn't immediately think about her. I didn't check my phone. I didn't replay old arguments or wonder if she was okay. I just made coffee and sat by the window and breathed. I didn't realize until that moment how long I'd been holding my breath. When I finally got back to my apartment, the place felt unfamiliar, like walking into a museum of someone I used to be. I had cleaned it before I left, but the energy was different now. Still, I was ready to start again. I turned my phone back on, half expecting a flood of messages. There was nothing from Tasha. Of course not. But one thing did pop up, an email notification from a contact I didn't recognize. At first, I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But the subject line stopped me cold. A letter from Mia. I opened it, hands trembling. It was scanned handwriting, her daughter's. Messy, big letters written in crayon. Hi, I miss you. Mommy said you're on a long vacation forever. I hope you're happy. Thank you for teaching me how to draw cats. I still do it like you showed me. I hope we see you again someday. Love, Mia. There was a smiley face at the bottom, and a crooked heart, and I lost it. I sat on the floor, letter shaking in my hands, crying like I hadn't cried in weeks. Not because I regretted leaving, but because love like that, it deserved more than what Tasha gave it, more than what I could offer while drowning, but I didn't reply. I didn't send another letter. I couldn't start the cycle again. Instead, I wrote a short response, no return address, and sent it to the same neighbor with one request. Only give this to her if she ever asks about me again. Inside, I'd written, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm proud of you. Keep drawing. It wasn't closure in the Hollywood sense, but it was enough. It's strange. The things you notice when the noise finally stops. The way you walk differently. The way food actually tastes again. The way your own apartment starts to feel like home instead of a holding cell. I started going to therapy, not because I thought I was broken, but because I finally admitted I'd been surviving in survival mode for far too long. I told my therapist everything, about Tasha, the kids, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the silent desperation I'd worn like a second skin. She didn't flinch. She just looked at me and said, "You're grieving a fantasy, not a person." That hit hard. But she was right. What I missed wasn't Tasha. It was who I thought she could be. The version of her I'd built in my head. The family I imagined we were. The love I wanted to believe in. Real love doesn't drain you. It doesn't come with conditions and guilt trips and weaponized silence. It doesn't make you question your worth every time you say no. Real love shows up. It holds space. It honors what you give without treating it like a favor owed. I reconnected with friends I'd ghosted. Apologized where I needed to. Laughed more. Ate better. Started running again. I even adopted a rescue dog. His name's Milo, and he doesn't care if I had a breakdown last year. He just wants belly rubs and walks in the sun. I still think about the kids. I always will. But I've stopped checking Tasha's social media. I've stopped wondering what could have been. That version of me, desperate for scraps of affection, is gone. And in his place is someone learning, slowly but surely, what it means to love without losing yourself. I heard through a mutual friend, one of those people who still follows Tasha on everything even though they pretend to stay neutral. The new guy? He moved in a month after I blocked her. Lasted 6 weeks. Apparently he caught her texting someone else and walked out without a word. No big fight, no dramatic ending, just gone. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not really. Just confirmation. She hadn't changed. Not for me. Not for him. Probably not for the kids either. That friend added, "She mentioned you the other day. Said she was surprised you haven't reached out." I laughed when I heard that. A quiet, exhausted kind of laugh. because she really thought I'd always be there, waiting, willing, ready to fill the cracks when her latest guy didn't work out. She thought I was the safety net that never snapped, the emotional crutch she could lean on until she found someone better. But here's the thing about crutches. They aren't supposed to walk away. And I finally did. No goodbye speech. No final confrontation. Just silence. Peaceful, deserved silence. I changed my number. Switched gyms. Even moved to a new part of town. Started fresh. People think moving on requires burning bridges or dramatic exits, but sometimes it's just about choosing yourself in the quiet moments, refusing to bleed for someone who hands you the knife. I don't wish her pain. I really don't. But I also don't wish myself back into that cycle ever again. She thought I'd always be there, watching the kids, answering texts, being the nice guy. She was wrong. I'm not her backup plan anymore. I'm not her anything, and for the first time in years, I'm finally okay with that.